This is Boxing Tickets and I were here at the final press conference for Crocker Donovan. Today we joined with the man of the moment. I think you were trying to have a fight last night with Ben Shalom, so a different sort of press conference for you today, one that you were fully in control of today.
Yeah, I think sometimes the fight week press conference is kind of like the work's been done. I would expect experienced people like Andy Leigh to say, nice and calm, Paddy, and probably vice versa. And the job's done. We've got 200 tickets left. It's going to be completely sold out. The atmosphere is going to be mental. I'm really pleased with the card from top to bottom. I think it's a great mix of fights and a brilliant main event. I know it's, we sell it on North v South and Belfast v Limerick and blah, 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 blah. It's two world-class welterweights in a big fight for the division, and the winner becomes mandatory to the winner of Boots against Stanionis.
Is this probably fair to say maybe Matchroom's best card you've done in Belfast? Like I'm trying to think off the top of my head which could be better.
Definitely top to bottom, without question. I mean, I've had the question a few times, like, what was the biggest all-Irish fight before this? I don't know the answer to
Mick and
that.
TJ?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think this is no disrespect to TJ, but I think this is, and the difference here is this is like two guys in their prime, 14-0, 20-0. So I don't think there's been anything like this before. And although the Croc's going to have massive support, there's a few coming up from Limerick. Don't worry about that. They'll be in that arena and it'll be a great mix. And it's a really good fight, pure 50-50 fight. Like, there are at least 6 50-50 fights on the card on Saturday. And I think everyone's going to get great value for money.
I know that obviously you've been so busy with so many different cards, but like, have you had different scenarios in your head as to how the main event goes? Like I've just sticking solely to the fence now. I just can't decide either way. Like, have you thought of different scenarios in the fight?
Every trainer will always tell you that there's so much more to that fighter than just, Paddy is slick, right? He has great feet, sharp hands. Crocker's very heavy-handed, can be very aggressive and spiteful. But Billy will say that, no, he can also box. And Andy will say, no, my man can punch and he can fight as well. But the reality is those attributes are their strongest attributes, and they've got to use those to their advantage. And I think Paddy will mix it up early. I think he'll be, sharp. And Darren Barker was saying about almost like Bivol Beterbiev, where it's like Paddy's got to fight like Bivol did against someone like Crocker, who's going to come forward, try and land bombs. And Lewis has got to try and have some success early in the fight. I think the last thing he wants is to be 4, 5, 6 rounds down through 7, 8 rounds, and then you're chasing the fight against someone with good feet, and you're loading up, and you're getting sloppy, and you're getting countered. Do you know what I mean? So the first 6 rounds, I think, are going to be very important. I do think it's a 50-50 fight. I don't know. I know Lewis is at home, and I don't know, but and again, neither fighter have boxed in this kind of occasion before, so there's all kinds of questions to answer.
I guess Lewis is the one up with the fact that he fought Thuran in a Belfast derby, obviously in the SSE before. Like, does that experience of them big nights probably favour Lewis more, the fact that he knows how to deal with it?
It does, but Paddy boxed on the Katie Taylor card quite deep on. That was a big night, but didn't have the same atmosphere for him like, Crocker against McKenna did. And I think a lot of this stuff, like this high-level stuff, comes down to the performance on the night. Again, going back to Bivol Beterbiev, to do what Bivol did in that moment was exceptional, and it's who can raise their game to put in that kind of performance on Saturday. And I really hope it sparks early, because if it does, it will be an all-time classic. I really believe that.
Wouldn't it be crazy, the fact that we got 3 fight of the year contenders within a week of each other?
Yeah, and I think this could be a fight of the year contender, and both guys, that's what I said about Craig against Paddy. You've got to make it count. You can't afford to finish the fight and go, this didn't really do enough, did I? You've got to let it all out and put it all on the line. And if they do that, which I believe they will, and I believe a lot of these fights on the undercard will do, I think we'll have a cracking night.
Who do you think could be the one to steal the show? I think he said during the presser that Shauna Browne is obviously the chance.
People don't really know a lot about Shauna Browne. They don't know hardly anything about Elif Thuran. If you watch Elif Thuran hit pads in fights, she's just completely all action. So is Shauna. And both girls they just want the opportunity. That fight will be an absolute war. And then Gerard Hughes against Farrell is going to be a lot of fun. I really like, Tommy against Steve. If they lay it on the line, which they really need to, that would be a great fight. Like if they mess around and, then it is what it is. But really, both of those guys should go out and go, right, let's have it. And then Kurt Walker against Woodstock. Woodstock talks a great game. And then Paddy against Craig's a brilliant fight. Like both guys have to win. I think both guys honestly will say, I will retire if I lose. That's what I think's on the line.
Another obviously Irish fighter, obviously McKenna's obviously fighting on Eubank Bay, and he was supposed to be in the mix of obviously fighting Kevin Adjargo on this card. Like that's a really good fight for Arn at this stage, I guess. Probably maybe matchroom owed him something obviously after I guess the follies with Japan with the prize fighter. Like this is obviously a big test for him, but do you think obviously he's got enough to beat Liam Smith?
I think there's question marks about Liam, like after the Eubank fight. Do you know what I mean? And obviously he pulled out the Josh Kelly fight, he was ill. But Liam's a world-class fighter, and it's a big step up for Aaron McKenna. But Aaron McKenna's fresh and young and like full of beans. So, I think it's a very, very interesting fight. And yeah, we did, we tried to make a few fights for Kevin. Didn't come through. And Aaron McKenna got the call up against Liam Smith.
I guess it's how that works out sometimes, isn't it? Kevin obviously potentially turning down fights in the past. Now he's sort of on the opposite side where he's accepting it and not happening.
I don't think, when a fighter doesn't, I think collectively trainers and everybody can turn fights down. I think now obviously he's a lot more willing to take those fights, and he said yes to some fights on this card as well that didn't materialise. So I think Kevin can be in big fights. Like I think he's got a run out soon in London, and he's like in his position now. He's ready and willing to take the fights that are offered to him, and I think that's where you'll see the best Kevin. I never really liked the way that, I'm not saying he was protected, but like I think he's a really good fighter, and I think you'll see the best from a lot of these fighters in better fights. Do you know what I mean? Fights that really get themselves up for it, and we'll be back in Ireland, and I'm sure he'll get an opportunity.
Anthony Cacace, obviously, and Leigh Wood was obviously announced. Both of them have actually give you a bit of a verbal back. Obviously, Leigh Wood, I think, was saying you need to watch sort of what you say. Like, I guess they're both sort of saying it, particularly Anto's saying that he's getting nearly double the money than what he was from Nunez.
He's not getting anywhere near double the money. I know the money. He's getting more money. I've got a good relationship with Leigh Wood. I respect him. I made him an absolute fortune. He's getting, I know what he's getting to fight Anto, and it's around the same number that we were offering him for Warrington. But the problem was, and it's not Leigh's fault, I never like to say overpaid, but in terms of the budget of the show, I overpaid Leigh Wood for a long time. And in the end, when we wanted to make the Warrington rematch, I couldn't give him the same money that he got in the first fight. And in Leigh's head, which he's more than has a right to say, I should be getting more money because I just won. Do you know what I mean? But he vacated his belt. It wasn't for a world title. And the finances of the show just didn't work. So we offered him some different fights, and he was out for, what's he been out for, a year and a half. And now he gets a Cacace fight. I'm delighted for him, and I'm delighted that it's in Nottingham. Like I said, I like Leigh Wood. My gripe is that our man got messed around, and we were told Cacace was fighting him. We stepped aside to allow the Warrington fight, which wasn't sanctioned by the IBF, on the proviso that the winner would fight Nunez or vacate. And they kept hold of the belt, and they messed around, and they messed Nunez around. They said they were going to fight him. I feel like I half-talked Anto into saying, no, fuck you, I'm going to fight him. And then they went the other way. And I feel like Nunez had many months of lost time. And what also annoyed me is I really feel like Cacace Nunez is one of the best fights you could ever watch. Like, I rate Anto Cacace. I think he's a good man. I think he's a good fighter. Sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say, I did swerve Nunez, but the reason I swerved Nunez is this. And I get it, and I understand he's getting more money, not a fortune's more, but a considerable chunk more, nowhere near double, to fight. Again, no disrespect to Leigh Wood, I just feel like it's an easier fight than Sugar Nunez. But I also feel like if it was one of my fighters and they were vacating their title without ever defending it because the mandatory was a bit tough, they'd get slaughtered, and I would get slaughtered as well. And I just feel like you should hold on to that world title for dear life. the lifelong dream, and try and unify the division and beat other champions. I understand why he's done it, and I'm not saying he's wrong to do it, but I would have just preferred it if people were a little bit more upfront, and I would have preferred my man to fight Anto and not a vacant title.
Would you revisit that again? Obviously, if Nunez.
But they've said, oh, maybe we'll fight him after. I mean, if the money weren't enough for you before, and then we become champion, and then you're the challenger, and then you're beating Leigh Wood, and then you think you should be on even more money now to fight Nunez. How does the fight happen? I don't know, but I think it's really more of a signal of the timing in Anto's life and career, rather than I think if he had ambition to go on and rule the division and beat the champions for years to come, he would never have vacated the belt. But he's also thinking to himself, how many have I got left? I've been there where I didn't get the opportunities. I'm taking the money, thank you very much. Sod Nunez, he's fucking seriously dangerous. I ain't fighting him. And that's what happened. But there's a little bit more honesty sometimes, I think, is the best way.
Final one from me, because obviously I know you have flights to go back to London. What's the latest, obviously, with Katie? I know that obviously WBC granted he's a month to sort of work out the Serrano fight. It looks to me, I guess from the outside, sort of looks like it's going to be Serrano in America. Is there any sort of news to give on that?
No, I think you're right. I mean, we're in negotiations with McKenna and MVP, going very well. I think there's a huge desire for people to see the third. Katie's won twice, but it's been razor thin every time. Those two could fight 200 times, and it would be a fight of the year every time. I think you're likely to see that fight in the summer in America. It's not done yet, but I expect it to be done, and hopefully we can get it over the line.
Are you fearful of the fact that because Serrano's cried twice now in the fight that she thought she won, that maybe Katie potentially could get robbed in the third fight because judges are favouring her?
I have to be honest, both fights are fights that could have gone either way. I truly believe that Katie won both fights by the margins that actually the majority of judges had, 96, 94, 95, 94, whatever it was. But one of those fights could have gone the other way. And in every fight between those two, I feel like they're always going to be 6-4 kind of fights. I don't think anyone's going to ever dominate. So, yeah, there might be an element that Katie's got to win better this time. But, we hope that the judges will score every fight on a blank piece of paper. And I'm sure another fight between those two great champions would be incredible to watch.
Well, listen, Eddie, thanks very much for your time. We're looking forward to obviously Saturday night.
6 p.m. on Friday for the weigh-in. ICC, get yourself down there, and let's have a great night Saturday.
Cheers, Eddie. Thank you.
Thank you.